You're listening to Count Richard von Coudenhove Kalergi. Today is April the 20th, Saturday, April the 20th, and here's a couple of comments since my last video. In Spain, the populist leader vowing to make Spain great again has been axed from the only televised debate confirmed ahead of the election later this month. The TV network was ordered to drop Vox leader Santiago Abascal from its debate after Spain's Central Electoral Board ruled his appearance would not be in proportional to votes. Even though Vox enjoyed a huge political breakthrough, becoming the third largest party at the elections in December in Andalusia, when it gained 11% of the vote and 12 seats. Polls predict that they could finish in third place nationally. Abascal responded in a tweet, quote, "First the establishment tried to manipulate our message in the media, and then they sent the hooded vanguards to attack us, and now they censor the Spaniards from hearing us. Let's see how long it takes RTE News talk handle Gemma O'Doherty, Peter Casey, Herman Kelly and the National Party in radio and TV debates." Now from that canary in the coal mine, Sweden. A Swedish man based in Stockholm has claimed that returning ISIS state need the right kind of Islam to help rehabilitate them back into society, but he did concede, quote, "In Sweden, we have a legal system that is not adapted for these gross abuses against humanity." The Swedish PM, Stefan Löfven, in an interview with local media, said that EU nations which refuse to open their borders to third world migrants should have to, quote, "pay a price," and wants to see sanctions on countries unwilling to take their migrant quotas. It cannot be the responsibility to be shared by 1, 2 or 3 countries. We all have to help each other. Hungary is one of the countries that receives the most financial aid from the EU and is saying no, adding that Brussels should cut funding to nations which reject mass migration. Budapest hit back with the foreign minister pointing out that the border fences boiled out by Hungarians are defending Western Europe and Northern Europe from illegal migration. Hungary made the decision to erect the fence after, in one day in 2015, 40,000 people entered Hungary illegally, and within 1 month 100,000 people had passed through Hungary heading towards Germany. The foreign minister also added, quote, "What is at stake at the May election is that politicians should be elected who want security in Europe and not resettlement quotas. Not no-go zones, not gang wars, not increased crime, and not a threat of terrorism. I would rather have Orban as a leader than any other European leader." Sweden has become the rape capital of Europe and is fast becoming one giant no-go zone and has no right making threats. Sweden might not exist within a decade or two, and according to the UN's Human Development Index, they believe that Sweden by 2030 will have a third world economy due to its welfare commitments. That's lunacy, does not need to be exported. In Italy, newly released statistical data from Italy's National Police Force shows that approximately 20% of all arrests made in the country during 2018 were foreign-born nationals, even though the foreign-born population in Italy is only 8.7%, compared to that of Ireland with 18% being foreign-born and the UK at 13%. The report concluded that the majority of foreign-born arrests were from Nigeria, Albania, Morocco and Tunisia. A UK report released by the Sunday Telegraph about ISIS concubine Shamima Begum was not as innocent housewife as she claimed, but was in fact an enforcer in the ISIS morality police, and had also tried to recruit other young women to join the jihadist group known as Hizbah, which hands out punishment to those flouting ISIS laws on how to behave and dress. One witness quoted in the newspaper said Begum was well known along with others European members of the religious police. The local population were very scared. Maybe that's how she came across the heads in bins and crucified people. There were also allegations that she stitched suicide bombs into explosive vests so that they could not be removed without detonating. The UK government has been briefed on intelligence received by the CIA and Dutch military intelligence. The BBC reported that she is to receive large sums of public money to challenge the government's decision to revoke her citizenship, with the Tory MP Philip Davis calling the decision absolutely disgusting. How she can be allowed to sponge off the taxpayers' money to get back to the country which she hates is absolutely ridiculous. Following on from my March the 15th video of the attacks on Christian churches in France, totaling 876 acts of vandalism, and the wrecking of a 200-year-old organ and stained glass window in the Basilica of Saint Denis, a 41-year-old Pakistani migrant who arrived in France 2 months ago will face trial for vandalism. While in court at the initial hearing, the man, who does not speak any French, said, "I do not know how I am concerned with this case." He has already been accused of acts of vandalism in February and has been traced using his DNA. The judge delayed trial until May the 10th and ordered a psychiatric evaluation. On St. Patrick's Day, another church in Paris, the Saint-Sulpice Church, which was used in the filming of the Da Vinci Code film, briefly caught fire at the entrance, with flames climbing up its massive wooden doors before spreading to the stained glass windows above. In the same week, another 11 churches were vandalised. Last Friday, April the 12th, a 22-year-old woman was jailed for 8 years for being part of a group of 3 jihadis that tried to plant a car bomb outside Notre Dame in September 2016. A car that contained 7 gas cylinders, and were on a list of radicalised individuals, with one of them saying, quote, "I am attacking you in your lands in order to terrorise you." During the arrest, all 3 women were veiled and carrying knives, with a policeman being seriously injured by stabbing. One of the 3 was a 39-year-old mother of 3, and the other was a 23-year-old engaged to Abdel Kermash, one of the terrorists of the Saint Etienne church attack of July the 26th, 2016, where 86-year-old Father Jack Hamill, who called out "Begone Satan" before he was beheaded beside the altar where he was parish priest, and both attackers were shot dead. This with the burning of Notre Dame on the 2nd day of Holy Week, and on the day that Jupiter Macron was due to give an important address to the nation regarding the 22nd weeks of Yellow Vest protests, and we are expected to believe that this was a result of a careless workman. On watching the footage taken from the front of the cathedral and seeing the 2 towers with the fire in the background, I could not help but think of the Twin Towers. The 2 towers of Notre Dame were in June 1971, where Philippe Petit, a French tightrope walker, walked between the 2 towers and inspired him to walk between the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center in August 1974 in a high wire act that lasted over 45 minutes, both symbols of man's achievement in expertise in design and engineering, one dedicated to the glory of God, the other dedicated to the glory of money. The Notre Dame taken 182 years to build, starting in 1863 under King Louis VII and Pope Alexander III. It suffered damage during the French Revolution and was the site for the coronation of Napoleon in December 1804, and gained popularity after the publication of Victor Hugo's 1831 novel The Hunchback of Notre Dame. It got UNESCO World Heritage status in 1991 and had up to 12 million visitors each year. The wooden beams over the 800 years old and had been described as a forest with over 1,200 oak trees used. No electricity or gas was used to prevent fire. The roof was in need of urgent restoration, and an architectural historian from Duke University who visited the roof 40 years ago observed that repairs were necessary. The workers that were used are the best in the world, and they are specialised craftsmen concerning medieval restoration. The historical monuments architect-in-chief Philippe Villeneuve said, quote, "Work has not yet been started, so therefore the hotspot theory is wrong, and that it is absolutely none of the employees was on site. Each intervention is always accompanied by historians and experts with extreme caution and very strict supervision of people. I think we will eventually learn that it was arson. Someone had to bring something there and light it up. There appears to have been 2 fires in separate locations, and it took the emergency services over 30 minutes to arrive. With the cathedral being right beside the River Seine, why could helicopters fitted with water buckets not have been used to help fight the blaze? The devastating sadness of the fire has quickly given way in some circles to boiling anger, with nearly $1 billion being pledged to restore the cathedral in a matter of hours. After 5 months of protest starting last November over social and fiscal issues, and with Macron due last Monday to unveil policies to quell the LFS movement, and today being the 23rd week of protest with 60,000 police on the streets are in Paris today, Macron may have more than a fire in the cathedral to worry about. And on Wednesday, yet again another act of vandalism in the small French town of Malves, where a statue of the Virgin Mary, despite being made of cast iron, was beheaded. And now for some domestic issues. 1.5 million euros worth of cannabis has been seized in a routine search of a van in West Dublin. Last Tuesday, a 66-year-old man was arrested and detained, and is believed to be part of an operation that saw an African woman arrested last week with €240,000 worth of cannabis in Lucan. Dublin Leary Reddown has cancelled a proposed book reading to children aged between 3 and 7 in Dean's Grange Library during this summer by a drag group known as Glitterhole, whose emblem is the outline of an arse, over complaints from the public. The group, which has pictures of their Facebook page of one of them holding a baby doll with the mark of an upside down cross on its forehead and a pentagram on its chest, and another photo of a man with a plastic vagina on his underpants. They accuse those who complained as being homophobic and transphobic. Who in their right mind would want these freaks around their children, especially without Garda vetting? The Social Democrat candidate, Sarah Durkin, was very disappointed. Sometimes I wonder, are these people really that insane, or do they believe that if they appear to be progressive, that it's the right career move to make? And this week being the 112th anniversary of the sinking of the Titanic, I thought I'd slip in an unusual feature of the sinking of the ship. There was a lady called Violet Jessup. The Titanic actually had 2 other sister ships, the Britannic and the Olympic. Now, the Olympic was the first one that was launched, and it actually hit off a British warship in 1911. This lady called Violet Jessup was also on the sinking of the Titanic as a stewardess, and in June 1916, the other sister ship, the Britannic, was sunk by a German mine in the Aegean Sea. So what an extraordinary feat to actually survive the sinking of all 3 vessels, and she lived to 1971, where she died in the UK. So there are a couple of thoughts of my own. Thanks for listening. Good night and good luck.